Hello everyone, good morning. Okay, welcome to today's HBL lesson. So for today, we'll be going through GI practice number 5. So I hope all of you have the assignment booklet with you. And before we go through our GI practice, I would need all of you to have completed our SLS lesson all the way from section A to section D. All right, so you should have gone through formulating aims and hypotheses, okay, data collection, data analysis, as well as data presentation technique. Okay, because for this GI practice number 5, you would need knowledge on these 4 sections in order to help you to answer the practice questions. All right, so if you have not done the SLS lesson, please pause the video here, go over to your SLS, take a look at the information posted before you come back to attempt the questions. All right, so for those of you who are still here, okay, it means that you have already completed an SLS. So let's take a look at our practice 5. All right, this can be found in your GI assignment booklet, okay, the one which was given to you a few days back during class. All right, so for our GI questions, okay, always take note that they will have this short little paragraph over here which introduces to you what the question topic is about, okay, and how the students carry out their GI, right? Then it is your job to use your knowledge on the 5 stages of GI, which was mentioned earlier, to help answer the questions that are given to you, right? So let us take a look at this portion over here, right? So a group of students wanted to find the reason behind Middle Point Shopping Centre's popularity as a tourist destination. Okay, now as you're reading this introduction paragraph here, please make sure you highlight the key ideas. So the group of students want to find reason behind the shopping mall's popularity. So highlight this as a tourist attraction, right? Now then, usually in the first paragraph, they will tell you how the students conducted their GI. So you see over here, they documented various types of shops found in the mall. Okay, so they focus on types of shops. All right. Then they also conducted a survey involving 60 tourists at the mall. Okay, so probably they went down to the mall and then they did a questionnaire survey on 60 tourists, right? So the results of their survey are posted in figure 1 and figure 2 below. Okay, so let us take a look at figure 1 and figure 2. Now, figure 1 shows us the different types of shop, right? And frequency over here refers to the count of each type of shop. Right, so for F&B, there are 9 shops that are considered F&B shops in the mall. Okay, then electronic shops, there are 15 shops. Okay, luxury brand, there are 12 shops. Children's products, there are 6. Okay, sportswear apparels, they have 4 shops. And finally, entertainment services, they have 2. Okay, so when we look at this shopping mall, very clearly this mall is quite atas. All right, because they actually have 12 luxury shops, which are the most in the mall, right? Now, so let's take a look at figure 2. Okay, so figure 2 is the questionnaire survey that the student used. Okay, so demographics of respondents, they have 30 male as well as 30 female. Okay, so these numbers are equal. Okay, then age of tourists. Now over here is showing the age group. So like 20 to 30 years old, okay, 31 to 40 years old, 41 to 50 years old, and above 50 years old. So the students actually conducted survey. They have 15 of these 2 groups, and then 12 and 18 of the remaining 2 groups respectively, right? Then the students, they also ask questions on where the tourists came from. So they wanted to find out the country or origins of the tourists. Okay, and then the results are as follows: 18 from America, 17 from Europe, 23 from Asia, and 2 from Africa. Okay, so from here we can take note that each of the numbers from the categories are not equal. All right, so you might want to think about how come this is as such, right? How come the numbers are not equal? Did the student did their sampling correctly? All right, or and then also decide how did they arrive at this set of numbers. Okay, and then lastly, the student also asked the following questions. All right, so statements provided in the survey: okay, many food choices, buying luxury goods, watching movie, accessibility. Okay, is located near other tourist attractions, as well as I have heard of this attraction, wanted to see what is it about, right? So they asked each of these questions to their respondents. However, this is actually a closed questionnaire survey, because all the questions over here does not allow the tourists to give their free response, right? So even for these questions, the tourists could only respond by saying they agree with the statement or they disagree with the statement. They are not allowed to give their free point of view. So all the questions here are closed-ended questions. All right. So next, we take a look at the questions over here. Okay, so as per usual, you have to always highlight the command word, all right, as well as the question focus of each question. Okay, so let's take a look. First question: identify the data collection method used to obtain the results as shown in figure 1. Okay, I know in your notes this is printed as figure 2. That's a typo error. Please change it to figure 1. Okay. So first command word is to identify the data collection method. So highlight the command word data collection method. The question focus. Okay, suggest one difficulty the student face. All right. So when you see this kind of question, suggest one difficulty, you have to understand that this is probably asking you to talk about the disadvantages of using the method mentioned, okay, when collecting the data. So this question worth 2 marks, 1 mark to each of the command, 1 mark to identify the method, 1 mark to the suggestion of the disadvantage. Okay, so a little bit of hint for you. Now, if we look at figure 1, we notice that okay, the students actually managed to get the type of shops, okay, the number of each type of shops over here. So you think of all the data collection method which you learn, okay, there are total of 5. So the first one is tally counter, your first data collection method. Then you also have the annotated field sketch and photograph, all right? Then you have a bipolar survey. You have the land use survey, okay? And then for the last data collection method, okay, let us refer to this. I also can't remember all of them off it, right? So we have our field sketch, our annotated photograph. Okay, then we have our tally counting. Okay, then we have land use survey. Okay, then we have our questionnaires and interviews. So among these five data collection method, you have to decide. You have to decide which among these 5 would actually help us to identify the type of shops in a location. All right. So that would be your answer. Then you have to give some difficulties of carrying out that kind of data collection method. Okay, so for question B, it's worth 3 marks. You have to give 3 points over here. So they ask you to describe one possible sampling method. he described the sampling method and state one advantage and one disadvantage of that sampling method. Okay. So you learn three different sampling methods. Always remember RSS. Okay, first would be random sampling method. All right. Then second S would be your systematic sampling method. And the last S is your stratified sampling method. Okay, so among these three, you have to decide, okay, which one did the student use, which is more probable based on the data that is given over here. All right, so if we look at the data given, we notice that some of the numbers, okay, the student managed to interview respondents from 30 male, 30 female, so the numbers here are equal, but then the numbers below here are not equal. Okay, so you have to consider which kind of sampling method would result in these numbers being unequal. All right, then after you have the sampling method, you have to recall, okay, what are some possible advantage of using that method? Okay, why would the student want to use that instead? For example, is it more convenient? Is it time saving? All right, and what is one disadvantage of using that method? Okay, so total 1 point over here, 1 point, 1 point, total 3 points, 3 marks. All right, now question number 3. Okay, so describe 3 guidelines the student should follow when interacting with the tourists. Okay, so this one is quite straightforward because here is worth 3 marks, and then they are supposed to describe 3 guidelines. Okay, so you have to think about when would the students interact with the tourists. Okay, when would they talk to the tourists? Okay, so pause the video, think about it. Now, if you got the answer, you say that they would interact with the tourists when giving out this questionnaire. Okay, it means that you have gotten it right, right? So for this question, you have to consider what are some of the rules, the guidelines, the best practices when doing a questionnaire. Okay, can you just go up and tell the tourists, now finish this? Or do you have to actually explain things to them, guide them into how to finishing the questionnaire? So you consider 3 of them, okay, 3 guidelines. All right, now for your third question, using the data in figure 2, represent the age of tourists in a pie chart. Okay, so this question is very straightforward. Basically, they want you to draw a pie chart to show the age of all the tourists. All right, so hint to you, if you don't know how to draw pie chart, okay, please go to the SLS lesson. It is under D, okay, under data presentation technique. Okay, from here you can find I believe it's number 5. Okay, number 5. All right, what is pie chart about? And over here, how to construct the pie chart. Okay, so there are the steps to constructing pie chart over here. Okay, so follow the steps taken to construct the pie chart. Okay, data you are used would be on age of tourists, so it would be from this area over here. Now consider questions worth 3 marks. So what are the 3 marks in the pie chart that you constructed? Like, do you have to give a title? Okay, do you have to ensure that your chart is accurately shaded? Okay, do you have to ensure that your chart is clear, is correct? All right, so some of the things you have to think of. Okay, now last question. So sometimes your GI will have this kind of question. They give you an extension of what the student had already conducted. So this student will be extra lah, all right? So he wants to find out the environment of Middle Point Shopping Mall. Is the environment good or the environment bad? Okay, so the question asks you, describe how this student should go about gathering and representing data. Okay, so there are two focus over here. First, he must gather the data. Next, he must represent the data. Okay, so focus is also on the tourist experience. So think about the different data collection methods that you learn. Which one of the data collection method actually focuses on experiences? Okay, the hint to you is that when we talk about experience, we talk about positive experience as well as negative experience. Okay, good things and the bad things. So which of the data collection method allow you to identify the positives, okay, the positives as well as the negatives. Okay, so you identify that, describe how to carry out that data collection method, and then how to represent data, right? So these questions here are not very difficult. In fact, I would find them quite straightforward. So you can pause the video, attempt all 5 questions before you come back to take a look at the answers. All right, okay, now those of you who are still here with me, I assume that you have already done all the questions and you're here to check your answers. Okay, if you have not done so, please go back and do the questions first before continuing this video. Okay, so if you're still here, means you have done all the questions. So let us take a look at it. Okay, so practice 5. Now, question number 1. Okay, identify the data collection method that obtain the results. Figure 1 suggests one difficulty the student may face when collecting the data. So very straightforward, the identify would be land use survey. Okay, because land use survey is the only data collection method among the 5 that allows you to identify the types of shops in a location. Okay, so it's the only possible answer, land use survey. Okay, suggest one difficulty. So over here, you can answer anything that is related to the scenario that is given to you. So for example, the student might find it difficult to categorize the shops, as some of the shops could be selling more than one category of products. Okay, so what this means over here is that some shops maybe say the sportwear and the children product shop, okay, they could be the same shop selling both items, right? So in this case, the student might have difficulty deciding if that shop belongs to a sportwear, okay, or a children products. Okay, for example, both of these type of shops can sell clothes, right? So the student can find difficulty to decide which one is it. Then another possible answer would be some shops have larger area. The student might not know how to map them out. All right. So basically, what is this saying over here is that the shops are always not so straightforwardly arranged, like how we do our sample land use survey. Okay, sometimes the shops might be large. Okay, they have weird shapes and all that. So the student might not know how to draw it out. All right. Now, over here, one possible answer would also be, could be the shopping mall is large. All right. And have multiple stories, okay, multiple floor lah. So this could be, what is the difficulty with this? Making it difficult for the students to, not difficult, making it time consuming. All right, time consuming for these students to map out the shops on every level. Okay, so they might need to take, say, 1 to 2 hours just to walk on every single level to count the shops in it. All right, so these are some of the possible difficulties. Now for the second question, describe the possible sampling methods, state one advantage and one disadvantage. Okay, so I want you to always note that this state one advantage, disadvantage, actually asking you to discuss the data collection method that were used. All right. So when doing your discussion, your notes give you some generic, some general advantage and disadvantage of each of the sampling method. Okay, but at the same time, when answering the question, you also have to try to answer towards the GI question that's given to you. So you can modify the advantage and disadvantage based on the scenario that is given to you. Okay. So possible answers. First one would be random sampling. Okay, so the students could see they describe the possible sampling method, right? So you must say random sampling, then how was it carried out? Okay, you cannot just write random sampling full stop, then you won't get the mark. So you can say the students carry out random sampling. They did this by approaching tourists at random without following any system. Okay, so basically as the tourists are walking by, they see, oh, whichever person, okay, this one is a tourist, immediately they ask the person. All right, so they didn't pick and choose and so on. Okay, so it's convenient, require the least amount of time to conduct. All right, basically first come first serve, so they can quickly conduct all their questionnaires, quickly go home. Okay. However, the disadvantage, the demographic of the people sampled may be skewed towards a particular group, right? So what does skewed towards a particular group means? Basically, this is trying to say that there are some biasness in the results, all right? So you have to ask yourself, why would random sampling lead to biasness? Isn't it like random, then according to your notes, everyone have a fair chance of being picked and all that? Okay, so the disadvantage is that it might not be so random after all, because why skewed towards a particular group? Okay, so the students, they might feel that there are certain people who are more approachable, all right? So they might, instead of randomly asking the adults, they're still doing it on random because there's no picking through a category. Okay, there is no like the systematic sampling and all that. But perhaps the student could see, oh, this one is an Asian, okay, can speak Chinese. So I go and approach the person, all right? Then, oh, this one African, I'm a bit shy, never speak to African before, so I don't want to talk to them and all that. So end up, okay, because of this method they use, it could be skewed. Okay, in the end, they ask more Asian tourists, they ask more people from, like, say, Africa or Western countries, America, Europe. All right, so this is one, the disadvantage. Now, second possible answer would be systematic sampling. Okay, so over here, they could be interviewing people at irregular intervals. So for example, every fifth tourist that walk past them, they would interview the person. Okay, so what is advantageous about this? It eliminates the biasness of the interviewer. Okay, so some interviewers, so previously I mentioned this skewed towards a particular group, right? Okay, the systematic sampling actually eliminates that, all right? Because every fifth person that walk past, regardless of is he from Asia or from Africa, the students would have to interview that person, right? So the student got no choice but to interview. So it eliminates the biasness. All right. Example of bias are those who speak English. Okay, then they decide to interview and all that. Okay. Now, what about the disadvantage of this? So it would be more time consuming. Okay, and might not work if the traffic flow in the area is not high. Okay. So why is it more time consuming? Because every fifth person that you interview. So you imagine, let's say, it takes 3 minutes for one tourist to walk past. Right, and then every time a tourist walk past, you have to count, okay, 1, and next tourist 2, 3, 4, 5, then the fifth one that you interview. So in order for that to happen, 15 minutes will have passed, then you can interview your first person. All right. So you imagine how long it takes to interview 60 person using the systematic approach. Okay, perhaps in this case, you might spend 1 or even 2-3 days just to collect the data. All right, so very time consuming. Then it might not work at all if the traffic flow in that area is not high. Okay, so if let's say the number of person total in a whole day, only 7 person pass by that area which they do their questionnaire. Okay, then it would be very difficult, very time consuming in order to wait for enough people to pass by to give them the survey. All right, so over here, describe the method, then the advantage and the disadvantage. Okay, you need 3 points in your answer. Okay, question C, very straightforward. Describe 3 guidelines when they are interacting with the tourists. So basically, you have to say that when the students are conducting the questionnaire survey, what are some rules they have to follow? Okay, so first rule, always introduce yourself politely. Okay, hi sir, hi ma'am, sorry to bother you. Could I take up a bit of your time to carry out this questionnaire survey? Okay, so must introduce yourself politely. Then after that, you have to provide information about the purpose of the questionnaire. Okay, so always explain to the tourists what are you doing. If not, the tourists will be so irritated. Okay, hey, why you stop me? What are you trying to do? All that. So you have to explain this to them. Okay. Now then, next point over here, state the estimated duration. Okay, some of the respondent might be in a rush. They only have like 30 seconds to 1 minute to spare. So if your survey is 5 minutes, okay, you don't want to have conducted the survey halfway, then they say, oh, sorry, I have to go. So you don't want this kind of thing to happen, right? So you always state the estimated duration. If the respondents are comfortable with it, then they will continue and start doing the survey, right? Then the final one, you have to thank the respondent for his or her time. It's always polite to thank the person who helped you out to do your survey. Okay, so there are 4 points over here. Total is worth of 3 marks. Okay, so make sure you give at least 3 out of these 4 points. Okay, if you want to give all 4, it's also possible. Now, what are some other possible points? So you can say things like do not ask sensitive questions that are irrelevant to the GI. Okay, you can also put like clarify any questions that the respondents are not sure about. So you want to ensure that your questionnaire is reliable, right? The data collected is accurate and reliable. So you have to also, like, if let's say the tourists, the respondents did not know what you're trying to ask, okay, you have to clarify the questions and explain it to the tourists. Okay, what are these questions trying to ask? All right, now question D. So using the data in figure 2 represent the age of a tourist on a pie chart. Okay, so this one you follow the video and draw the chart. That should be fine. Okay, make sure you use a protractor to measure the angle, the degree correctly. Okay, then also make sure that you draw a circle, which is a circle. Some of you, based on your lower side work, you actually draw funny shapes like oval, okay, watermelon, banana. I also don't know how you draw that kind of funny shapes for your pie chart. So make sure you draw a perfect circle and then you measure the angle. Okay. So title, right? You can come up something related to age of tourists. So for example, you can say pie chart of the age of tourists surveyed. Okay. And then award 2 marks for the correct data representation. So make sure that each of these category has a different color. Okay, so the 20 to 30 years old could be like the darkest shading. Okay, then the 31 to 40 years old could be a bit lighter shading and so on. Right. So this would be 90 degree, okay, 90 degrees, 72 degrees, 108 degree. So how do we get this degree over here? Very simple. there are 60 respondents, right? For example, so if we look at 20 to 30 years old, 20 to 30 years old, there are 15 people, then 31 to 40, 15, okay, 41 to 50, 12, above 50, there are 18. So basically what you do over here, right, you must convert the respondents for each category to percentage. So 15 divided by 60 in total, okay, times 100%. Okay, so that would be equals to 25%. Okay, so in a circle, there are 360 degrees, right? So over here, you have to take 25%, 25 over 100 times 360 degrees, which will give you 90 degrees. Okay, so basically that is the math behind what are the angles you're supposed to plot. All right, so you can do the same for others. For example, 108 is sorry, okay, 18, right? So 18 of people are above 50 years old. So you can take 18 over 60 times 100. Okay, so this would give me something like I don't have my calculator over here, but you can do the math, then you can take the answer from here over 100% times 360 degrees, which would give you 108 degrees. All right, so this is how you do your calculation. Okay. Now, if you have any questions so far, please post them in the comment down below, and then I'll take a look at the comments and then answer the comments, respond to it to clarify your questions. Okay, final question. So one of the students wanted to find out how the environment of Middle Point Shopping Center affects the tourist experience. He described how the student should go about gathering and collecting the data. So I've already given you the hint. The hint is that the experience, right? We talk about positive experience and negative experience. So the only data collection method which allows us to do that, okay, besides asking the question directly through your open and closed-ended question, is actually the bipolar perception survey, right? So the answer should be the bipolar perception survey, okay? Then this will allow us to study how the tourists perceive and evaluate the shopping center. Okay, so it's a described question. You cannot say bipolar perception survey full stop, you'll get it wrong. So you can say that they could ask questions related to the surrounding on whether the experience is positive or negative. All right, so they can ask questions like, do you find the place pleasant, unpleasant? Okay, then there is a ranking scale from 2 to +1 to 0, all the way to -1, -2. So the student will respond on through that and write their answers down. All right. So you have to say, you could ask questions related to the surroundings, on whether the experience is positive and negative. Okay, then you have to add respondents will have to rate their experience on a scale of +2, comma, okay, +1, comma, 0, okay, -2, and sorry, -1 and -2. Okay. So I'm describing how the bipolar perception survey would look like. All right. Then how can this data be represented? So the data from a bipolar perception survey will be represented through a bipolar graph, which shows both the positive and negative aspects through a bar graph. All right. So the students could use the data gathered, represent them through a bipolar graph, okay, which shows both positive and negative aspects in the form of a bar. All right. in the form of a bar, of bars to represent their experiences of Middle Point Shopping Center. Okay, so the full statement, the student could use the data gathered and represent them in a bipolar graph, which shows both positive and negative aspects in the form of bars that represent their experiences in the mall. That represents their perception of the experiences of Middle Point Shopping Center. Okay, so these are the answers for your GI. Very straightforward, nothing challenging, nothing tricky. The only issue is that you need to have really gone through all the content, memorize it and understand it. Okay, then you will be able to apply it in an examination setting. All right, so we have come to the end of this video. If you have any question, please post them down in the comment section below, and then I'll get back to you when I see you in school. Okay, so happy HBL. Hope you have a good progress for this subject as well as all your other subjects today. Right? Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.